of death and fear of illness and all of these sorts of things that were just buzzing in my head. I don't have something to offer within that space, and that it would be possible to combine both movement and... Welcome to the Yoga Lens podcast with Moni and Emilie from Vim Yoga Academy. Here we explore life through a yogic lens, from teaching and philosophy to everyday life, mindsets, and all the messiness in between. This is yoga on and off the mat and in motion.
So hi, welcome back to the Yoga Lens, and I've got Emilie here with me. Hi Emilie.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
Having beautiful autumn days.
It's sunny. We're not going to talk about the weather, but...
No.
So last week we spoke about my journey into yoga, and yours is very different. And I really love your journey because I love the difference. And I love the fact that you've come from a background where you weren't a dancer, you weren't in movement. Movement, I guess, was maybe not necessarily part of your everyday. You were more in corporate world, and so I'm interested to hear a bit about your journey. So do you want to lead us into where you want to start with your journey?
Yeah, I would say that movement was part of, maybe not every day, but it was a huge part of my life, but not in a professional sense. But it has been since my late teens or mid-teens. It's been my main interest. I came from having a huge interest in horses. I was a horse girl. I had a horse, and I spent all my time doing that. It takes a lot of time to have a horse. It's like a daily thing that you spend 3 hours on. But eventually, when I went into, I would say maybe you would call it high school, from 16 to 19, there was no time to really have a horse like that. But I just enjoy having an activity. So I started to go to gyms. But mainly at that time, it was the aerobic scene,
Yes,
all the sorts of aerobics that you can ever imagine. I've tried them. I've done the slide. I don't know, did you have slide?
No, I
Oh my God, it was like you had this thing. It was like a yoga mat, but it was like shiny and really slippery, and you had those special socks.
Oh wow.
And you kind of were sliding from side to side. I don't know. I've tried all of the, like, from dance aerobic to striptease aerobics and boxer stuff.
I didn't actually realize there were so many different categories of aerobic.
Oh my God, it's like...
I know there's leotards, different categories of leotards.
And I mean, this was in Sweden in the 90s. I'm really impressed that they had all of this to offer. But I didn't get into it in that sense that I stuck with one, but I just got really into working out. I just enjoyed it so much and what it did to my mind and to my body, and it really made me feel focused during these studies, because I studied at that time nature science, so it was kind of demanding. I don't know if I could pass it today, but at that time I had those skills.
So nature science, what does that entail?
It's like the one, if you want to become a doctor, for example, that is a preparatory education you need to get. It has a lot of maths, physics, chemistry, biology. Yeah, it is
super.
All of those. Yeah, it's a lot of counting and doing laboratory stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very academic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but movement then, I think that is where I laid the ground and like the foundation for my movement practice, and I kept it since then. I never stopped ever to move. It was also one thing that was very like life-changing, or that really made a huge difference, was that I learned how to go there myself. Because in the beginning there was always like this, you have a friend and they say, hey, let's do this together. Let's work out together and let's do Tuesdays or whatever. And then eventually your friend is like, oh, I can't today, I can't do this, I'm doing it. And in the beginning, it's very easy to just fall off yourself and say, like, I'm not going either. If she's not coming, I'm not going.
Right.
But I sort of just taught myself that I don't care. I don't care if anyone else is coming. I'm going to do this on my own. And that is also something that it has helped me stick to any routine, that I am not. I've just decided that I'm not going to depend on anyone else's dedication or time. I just have to learn how to do this by myself.
Right. So there's a lot of self-discipline. And in fact, as I've gotten to know you, I know you've got that discipline in most parts of your life.
Tapas, the Nyama tapas is like I can dial it down even. Right. It's like I have a little bit too much tapas. Not in terms of the Spanish small dishes. You can't get enough of those. But the Niyama tapas. I mean, I have many times had a New Year's resolution that was to procrastinate more. Because
what's beautiful about it is that you're so accomplished, fully accomplished in all the areas that you enjoy and that you have, what I see, the areas that you've really established in your life. So, for example, the career you had before you had yoga, you were very accomplished, reached very high standards. You're an incredible cook. You're an amazing mother.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Oh, yes.
But it is
everything. So
it does give results, but sometimes it also. I mean, I put a lot of. I do, as you say, it creates high standards.
Right. Exactly.
For yourself.
And so, can you just talk a little bit about the career you entered into before you became a yoga teacher?
I studied to be an industrial designer. So I have a master's degree in industrial design. And before that, so I was always, even though I took nature science, I was always very creative and artistic, both in music and in more arts, like in painting and drawing. And creating has always been something that's very present in my life. I come from a very creative family. Both of my parents are artists. So it's been like in my life all the time. And when I took this nature science, it had a music sort of direction. So we had music on the schedule a lot. After that, I just studied arts in different ways. And I studied fashion design for 2 years. And eventually, I actually realized that I didn't like the fashion industry. I just didn't like the kind of vibe in there about how you needed to be in a specific way to be accepted. And I realized that industrial design, which is a lot broader, would probably suit me better. And it was also more of a proper education. It was like in the University of Lund here in Sweden. And so I studied that for 5 years, got a job straight after at Sony Ericsson, which it was called back then, to be more of what you call a UI and UX designer. And then you design what you see on a screen and the flow between when you press the app icon to what comes next and how does it look and how does it move. And I worked with that there for 4 years, and then I worked with that at my own bureau with my husband and some other people for another 10 years or 11 years.
Right. Okay.
So it was very corporate in many ways. During those years, I was also working 5 years at Huawei as a consultant. So it was very corporate. There was a lot of meetings. There were a lot of times when I was the only woman at the office. It was a very tech-based and male-dominated world. So extremely different to where I am now. Like complete opposite.
Right. And so then when did your yoga journey begin? So you went into the aerobic world and you were doing that alongside working in this corporate world. And so at what point did you discover yoga and what led you there in the beginning?
There's actually, I would say, two discovery points. Like one was the discovery point and one is more when I discovered Vinyasa Flow. Make a difference between those two. Because I discovered yoga, I tell this story a lot. It was when I think I was 20 or 21, and I read in the Swedish Elle magazine about Madonna. She had like some sort of comeback then with that Austin Powers movies. And she also turned 40. And she's 20. I guess I think she's 20 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So I think she was around her 40s. And I read in this interview that she did yoga every day. And then I was like, oh my God, that seems like a really good idea. Look at her. You know?
She looked incredible, didn't she? She had...
Yeah. I was like, wow, that must be a really good thing. That yoga thing.
Yeah.
And also I had been for a very long time before, been interested more in the spiritual part. Like I had been into like crystals and those sorts of things, a little bit more woo. And I also had been like trying meditation, also because I think it was very MTV influenced, because I think that was from Moby.
Okay.
Like he was meditating, and I just, was just really curious about it and tried it, but didn't really make it work. Right. I mean, it's hard to learn how to meditate in the beginning and to have the dedication. This article actually led to me going to that little local shop for crystals and incense and weird books, and I got myself a yoga video on VHS, like those good old tapes.
They were breaking down poses, pose by pose. That's interesting. You didn't go into the class setting in the studio.
So that's why I'm online. That's like where I started, right?
You started
in front of the screen.
Full circle.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I think it was also because the same reason that you spoke about, that yoga world at that time. I mean, this was the late 90s. And it was like a big step for me, like this aerobic girl sort of, to go in to find. First I had to find like a studio, and back then, I mean, it was early internet. I probably would have to go to like the phone book, right?
Yeah.
And find a yoga studio and go there, be like, hi, and they would be all weird and be like, hello.
That was your perception.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you, I was just like, oh, it's going to be weird. So I just felt like I'll just get this video and I see what it is.
Right.
And I don't have to invest like my energy in that sort of, if I don't like it. I don't have to pay for a 10 session course or so, and I just to figure out that I don't like it.
Right. So was there anything to do with, so there was the feeling and the atmosphere and perhaps the people. What about this idea of moving yourself? Was there any kind of resistance there, or did you feel a little bit, I don't know, not scared, but timid to move in front of other people?
No, I think that was no problem. I mean, I was very used to the aerobic world.
Right, okay.
So that was not at all. And that is more intimidating because you have really complex choreographies. I mean, it was almost like dance, right?
Yeah.
And you were supposed to learn these choreographies there during that hour.
Yeah. Could you give me a sense of what you felt the difference was from being in the aerobic world and moving in that way to then moving in a yoga class, even if it was online or on video?
It's very different. There was no music. It was very still. And I think since I actually then continued, not so consistently straight after, but I did do that for a very long time, that video, like over and over again. I think I just enjoyed like the peace and the body control. I think I realized pretty quickly that there was a level of body and mind control in the yoga practice that was maybe not so present in an aerobics class, since aerobic is aerobic and not dance, and then it doesn't require that precision. In a yoga class, you just spend much more time in the pose, like refining and finding the alignment, doing this, tucking there, pressing there. It's just, it's very different.
The detail, and also the slow movement, right? Because when you slow things down, then you become a lot more conscious and aware of what's actually happening, what goes where, and
definitely
what is in space.
Definitely.
Let's talk about your transition. How did you go from being the corporate girl in the corporate world, in this very male-dominated environment where you were very successful, to transitioning into becoming a yoga teacher?
It all began with that falling in love and finding Vinyasa Flow, because to be honest, even though yoga was nice, it also still has had a slight part of boring to me. That sort of yoga was boring. I am just like you, I'm like craving movement and action, and just holding the poses and being still like that wasn't super fun, to be honest. But many years later, when I was working out, it was before I had kids, so I had a lot of time to work out. I used to go to like a body pump class or something like that, and then afterwards there was a body balance class, and that is a mixture of yoga, tai chi and Pilates, also ending with about 15 minutes of like shavasana, right? And so I started to do that as a way of like stretching, and I really enjoyed that, the peace and the stillness and the movements. Then I was asked by the owner of the gym if I wanted to become a teacher. And that was a very short, typical Les Mills. You go off for a weekend and you get taught like the basics, and then you get back and you begin to teach. You get to film yourself, send up the tape, still VHS at this point. You send up the tape to the main office. For me, that was in Stockholm, and they evaluate you, and then you get certified. It is all based on quarterly releases. So they create everything for you. They create the entire class. They provide you with the music, but it really taught me how to teach. Place the foot here and sweep the arm up, all of these sorts of things. They began already then.
So you left the corporate job and went straight into teaching?
No. I mean, I was teaching once a week or maybe.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you were doing the two things at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just like a hobby, teaching body balance. It was fun. Just the way it is to teach, connect with people, see how they begin to feel good and they can move in new ways. But I had to give it up for many, many years.
Right.
And eventually, I've been trying to think about what actually triggered this, but I think that it was because I wasn't feeling super good. It was very stressful to do that, to have both the corporate job and to have two small kids. It was just becoming very stressful, and I was always feeling tired and depleted, and also suffering from a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of fear of death and fear of illness and all of these sorts of things that were just buzzing in my head. I don't know why, if it was the age or the being a mom, or it was a tough time actually. For mentally. And I felt that the workouts that I was still doing, because there are gyms here, so I could still do some sort of aerobic and body pump things. I could feel that I needed something more, and I knew that yoga had something to offer within that space, and that it would be possible to combine both movement and that more spiritual and mental practice in yoga. So I began to look for inspiration on Pinterest. I'm very visual, I cannot think without images. So I was just browsing. I guess I was searching for workouts, inspiration, ended up on some really nice yoga images that were very inspiring. They were very aesthetic and beautiful, but they also showed me a part of yoga that I had not been aware of before, because I had only been doing like warrior two and triangle pose and the basics, maybe a headstand every now and then. And all of a sudden, I saw images of, for example, Kino McGregor and Bryony Smythe doing really, really fun things like handstand scorpion. I have this image of Kino doing handstand scorpion on her hands, putting her feet on her forehead. And I was like, oh my God, is this part of this? I want to do this too. This seems like really fun.
I think that's perhaps where there was a really big shift in the yoga world, is when the perception and the idea of what it was to be in a yoga shala or a yoga space and what it was to practice really shifted once the visual images came out on social media. I think
you're probably right.
Realized that there was a lot more than sitting and breathing and offering and chanting, that it was very physical, and that you actually required to have a lot of strength and flexibility and mobility to be to practice yoga.
Yeah, that image still sticks, right? For people who never done that search, yoga inspiration, at least here in Sweden, they still think that is just being on a mat stretching.
Yeah. And there's also then the other end of the spectrum where people are just on Instagram and just on Pinterest and just see very advanced.
Yeah, and they think that is amazing. That's like what is required, right?
What's required. And so a lot of people, new students of mine, say, oh, I'm not flexible. Yeah, no. I can't do this, and this. It's like,
I can't do the splits. It's like no one is gonna ask that of you.
Yeah, you have to be able to do the splits to be able to sit on a mat.
Yeah, exactly. To come in here.
Yeah, so this, we have to kind of work against that image now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I was very inspired by that, by those images. I went to internet. First I started on YouTube, but I got really bored because I just did the same class over and over again. But I then found a platform and I got a membership, and I really fell in love with that sort of movement. And it was so different to that video with Hatha yoga, because this was all of a sudden Vinyasa yoga, and there was a flow. There was movement all the time. There was like pulsations. There wasn't a second for me to think about what was for dinner, or I just had to be so much in the moment. And I still love it to this day. There's no better feeling, no better thing to do than to be in that flow.
And so again, I'm just going to point out, which is interesting, is that you didn't enter a class.
No.
Into a yoga shala. You were still online. And you were still in your own space.
But I actually did then go to a class. Maybe that was the first yoga studio that I became a member of.
Right.
I can't really remember why. It was a hot yoga studio, and I went to some Bikram classes. Didn't really like that because it was also too boring, doing the same thing over and over again. We see a pattern here of some sort of need to like do different things. But there was a teacher there who is now a very good friend of mine, Ina. She had Vinyasa Flow there, and I began taking her classes. At that point, she had yoga teacher trainings, and she, after a couple of years, I guess, she began to kind of nudge me and say like, hey, you should be a teacher. You should take my training. You should be an excellent yoga teacher. I guess that was where it all kind of, she planted the seed to take this somewhere else. And also I think that I forgot to say, because during that year, which year was it? 2016 maybe? In the end of 2015, I had found Vinyasa yoga, was very into it, and I challenged myself to do yoga 300 days during 2016. And I met that goal on day 305, and I just continued.
And so that was your own personal goal, your own personal challenge?
Yeah, I was just very curious to what was going to happen and how I could make this part of my life.
What happened in that journey? Because what's interesting, we spoke last week a little bit about the plateau that happens when you first enter into practicing yoga, and you get these big changes, and then there's a plateau. So through those 305 days, What was the journey? Was there a plateau? Was there a sense?
I don't think there was a plateau at that point. I was still discovering new teachers and new movements, but what I did discover was that I just felt so much better in my head. Like my anxiety went away, my neck pain went away. It all became so much better, and I became so much more patient with my kids. I just became a better mom. All of this didn't happen in 300 days, but it was the beginning of all of those transformations.
And so again, where was the distinction between having achieved that or received that and accomplished that or have expanded into that space compared to perhaps not getting into that space or into that mode or growing in that way when you were in the aerobics class or in the body balance? So can you just be a little bit more specific about the different experiences and how it was that your way of thinking and holding yourself changed, not necessarily just because of the movement, or what was it that happened?
I think it's the distinction is between a workout and a practice. I think that tells it very well. Like before I was working out and now I'm practicing, and it's, even if it is a really good workout, I considered it a practice. It's something that I do every day, and I don't put anything particular on it. You know, I don't demand or require certain results. It is just part of my life. A workout is more, you know, you want results and you do it because you have to, and it's more just something you need to tick off the list. But the practice, it's my own space, it's my own time.
It's a journey. There's more of a learning.
Yeah, it's a journey. I learned so much and I'm still learning, and you don't really learn that much from working out. Maybe you can lift heavier weights. But in the yoga practice, you learn something new all the time, whether that is physical or mental. It's a journey, and it's different. I still do work out, but I always come back to my practice, and that's always what I enjoy the most.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's just go back just a little bit, because that moment of deciding that you would leave the corporate world and become a yoga teacher, was that scary? As we've got the yoga teacher training, we do have students joining who are bridging the two worlds.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very scary for some of them. They know they want to change. They can see themselves as a teacher. They love yoga. They want to share it with their friends, the world, their communities. But there's a bit of fear there holding them back.
Yeah.
And so I think for you to explain your process and how you made that decision might be really helpful.
Oh, it was really, really scary. It can still be scary from time to time. I think it is because it's so deeply rooted in your identity, your job and your profession. It's like when you present yourself to someone, they ask you, what do you do? And you say, I am a doctor or I am a designer, and it really defines who you are. And when you need to shift that into something completely different, I mean, we both have the experience that yoga can be perceived as something a bit weird and woo, and people have opinions about it, and they
not
see
a proper job.
Exactly, they always say that it's not a proper job.
Not a proper job.
So just shifting from that, from having a proper job with a proper education and all of that, to saying that I am now a yoga teacher and I work online, and it was just very tough. I remember one occasion I was doing a sort of course, I think, with a woman who is like a yoga business coach in some way. And she had this task for us to change the header of our Facebook page to say something like your elevator pitch, like I help women to blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And kind of really put yourself out there and say that you do this. And I couldn't do it. I never did. I have done it now, like many years ago. But at that point, I wasn't ready to stand up for this path that I had chosen. And it's tough. I mean, it is tough because it's yoga and meditation who taught me to break through that, to just push through that and be honest with myself and not give a shit about what anyone else thinks about me. But it's very hard. I don't think I would have ever been able to make it if I didn't have the tools that yoga provided me. So it's a good circle that that it was actually this change that was happening. But it is a tough transition to make.
It's a really fascinating journey that you've taken, and there's still so much more I want to ask about your journey, because you didn't choose just to become a yoga teacher. You also chose to become a yoga teacher online. And I think that's very interesting, from choosing to be a yoga teacher in space or in a studio or in a yogashala where you're held by a studio owner or you're held by a group of people around you, to take that leap and go online and become a yoga entrepreneur is also a really interesting journey, and that's something that I would love to speak about in future episodes. But
I can say as a cliffhanger that I knew when I did my 200-hour training, I had decided that I wanted to teach online.
You already did.
I had such great experience with amazing teachers online, and it was just so lovely to see how you could get that reach, that you could reach so many people, that you could change so many lives if I was online. And that was my driving force behind being online, and also just learning how to get through to people through the screen. I think that was a challenge that I was very intrigued by, because I had experienced it myself, but I had also experienced the opposite.
I think now we've got a culture post-COVID where people are used to communicating online and being in relationship and in connection with each other online. And pre-COVID, that wasn't the case. So to make those connections and to educate people to be taught online was a completely different game altogether.
Yeah. Let's speak about that. It's very interesting.
It's very interesting.
And your transition too.
Yes. Yeah. It's also was a bit of a whirlwind. So
it always is.
Always is, and continues to be. Wonderful to speak to you, Emilie.
So beautiful to speak to you, always.
Yes, I'll speak to you next week.
Yes, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Yoga Lens podcast with Emilie and Moni from Vim Yoga Academy. If you've been thinking about becoming a yoga teacher, or you just want to deepen your practice in a powerful way, our next 200-hour yoga teacher training starts January 5th. It is mostly online, so you can go at your own pace, and then we meet for one transformative week in Mallorca the last week of March. If that sounds like your kind of journey, head over to vimyogaacademy.com to learn more. We'd so love to have you with us, and don't forget to book your personal meeting so that we can offer you the best price on this training.